Whew, another wild week with wild swings on Wall Street. The Dow dropping more than 1,000 points Monday morning, but all three indices rebounding and managing to end the week in the green. Now, presidential candidate Bernie Sanders blaming all this market mess on Wall Street greed. But some here say he's wrong. So who's right? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Buttner. This is Bulls and Bears. And here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Gary Kaltbaum and Emily Tish Sussman. Welcome to everybody. Okay, Gary B., Bernie Sanders saying Wall Street greed is to blame. You agree?
I don't. I think it all, if you look at the root cause, going back to the financial crisis that we had, it was the Fed flooding the markets with the easy money. Now, did banks and mortgage companies and you know the like do some unscrupulous things? Of course, but why could they do it? Because you had all this money flowing like water through the markets. You know, it's funny, Brenda, people don't point back at the Fed and the government for creating the situation of this quote unquote greed, and they really should.
Well, that's a good point. But Emily, you know, markets go up, markets go down, the markets go down. It's Wall Street greed when they go up. Is it the same thing?
Look, I think Bernie Sanders has really tapped into something. I think it's clear that he's tapped into some populism, and people are feeling like for the last couple of years they understand intellectually that the recession is over, but it really has been two recoveries, right? Wall Street has recovered, big corporations have recovered with record profits. People do not feel it in their pockets. And people have been starting to think, well, really, is this a stock bubble? And over this past week, people are thinking, maybe it is. Maybe it has been a bubble.
Well, John, a lot of people would agree with that. There's a lot of reasons. There's, you know, China has had problems. The global economy is shrinking. Of course, the Fed printing money, all that stuff. But somebody with a 401k who has money in this market, can they say it's all those big money guys on Wall Street who are making my stocks go down?
No, they can't. And I don't think people are saying that this stock market is a bubble. You're seeing a repricing of world stock markets because China is going from 7% growth to about 5% growth. That's a 30% haircut of GDP of the world's second biggest economy. That has most of it to do with. And you talk about Bernie Sanders striking a chord. Che Guevara struck a chord too. Ask the people of Cuba how that worked out. Look, Bernie is an admitted socialist. He doesn't like Wall Street. But to blame Wall Street on this is absolutely insane. It's a populist message. Yeah, let's blame the old rich guys down on Wall Street for doing all this, when actually the government is the one who created this scenario that caused the entire housing bubble. The government and the Fed, through low interest rates, are the one. Look, we've devalued our currency for years. China is just responding. We're devaluing it through by printing so much money. And you talk about seniors and 401ks, there's no yield right now because the Fed has interest rates at zero. That's why the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. It's been going on since about 2000, and it's just continuing.
Hey, Brenda?
Yes.
I got to throw my hat in here on Bernie Sanders because on September 8th, 1941, Bernie Sanders was born. The Dow was at 127 that day. During the time up to today, it went up to 18,300 before this latest nausea. During that time, Wall Street and the markets have created trillions of dollars of wealth, tens of millions of jobs, taken people out of poverty into the middle class, into the middle class, from the middle class into the wealthy class. Bernie Sanders has not created one dime of wealth while the markets have done the job. And my message to Bernie Sanders, there's a certain country 1,700 miles south of where I'm sitting called Venezuela is being run by socialists and being destroyed. That's my message.
Well, you know, Jonas, John made a good point with Cuba and Gary K. with Venezuela. Let's look at America. I mean, basically, the Wall Street is to build companies and enable people to buy some equity, some part of that company. Is that greed? Is that a problem?
Well, it is greed, but look, Bernie made some points that are sort of, in a weird way, right to a certain audience. Look, let's be honest, rich people caused the crash Monday, okay? It's not poor people. You have to have stocks to sell. It was an excess of sell orders that flooded the market, right? And it tanked, and then other rich people bought in later in the week, and it came back, is what seemed to have happened. That doesn't mean in his tweet, I think Bernie said he wanted to end Wall Street or put it. And look, socialist countries have Wall Street. They have their own stock indexes. They have investment bankers. That's okay. Like they know that Wall Street's a golden goose that makes the whole country ride. If you put it out of its misery like the communist regimes do, that's when you have a problem where everybody gets poor. So if he wants to play socialist, that's fine, but he's not. He's actually talking communist to the other guest point, which is what happened in Cuba and in communist Russia.
Emily, what do you say about all this?
I mean, that was an excellent point, that it is not the average American and it is not poor Americans that are playing in the stock market right now. 90% of Americans only have about 20% of the stocks. So it is really a very small percentage of the population that is playing around here.
Well, but Gary Kay, actually, a pretty high percentage of Americans do own stock, even though they don't own a huge percentage of the stock market. They have a stake here. They're buying and selling as well.
Americans have a ton of stock in their 401ks, in their IRAs, and their regular accounts. Look, you can't have it both ways. If you blame the rich people for the drop, then you've got to blame the rich people from going from 6,000 on the Dow in the year 2009 up to 18,000. This is just ridiculous at this point. If you want to blame anybody, it is on Ben Bernanke for causing booms and busts with his easy monetary policy. That's why you get ridiculous moves up and ridiculous moves down. They need to back away if anybody needs to.
He was the head of the Fed, and there's been many years where the Fed has essentially been printing money. That's what you've been talking about, Gary B., right?
Yeah, exactly. Look, the Fed has become more and more involved, and more political, and it's made these market gyrations bigger and bigger, and you're starting to see the volatility really affect the average American. But, on the flip side, I want to get back to this greed point, and John made this point earlier. Look, the typical Wall Streeter out there is a guy managing a large mutual fund, not the hedge fund guys. Those are a very small part of Wall Street. It's a fund like a Fidelity Magellan where 50% of Americans are invested in the stock market. So if I'm running Fidelity Magellan and I buy IBM or GE, I want to make money for my shareholders, the quote-unquote little guy out there. So I don't see when Bernie Sanders says it's Wall Street greed. It's like a guy doing his job that wants to make everyone else that invests in the fund richer. That's 50% of the Americans out there. How the heck is that greed?
And let's not forget
Hold on. I'll give Emily a chance to respond. Go ahead.
That is the most altruistic categorization of Wall Street I've ever heard.
But how is it wrong? How is it wrong? Aren't they paid on performance? Why would I try to stick it to the little guy when he's investing in my fund through a 401k or directly?
I hope they are thinking of the little guy. I don't have a ton of faith.
They're thinking about their returns. They want to make money. Yeah. That's how they make money. That's their business.
Let us not forget that it is Wall Street and the markets that also spawned the companies like Microsoft and Dell and Amgen and Biogen that had great technology that moved this country forward. Medical breakthroughs brought the country forward and made a ton of money for everyone, including the employees of these companies, whether it's the secretary on up to the CEO.
John?
This is a ridiculous argument. Why are we hating people because they're successful? Do I hate Floyd Mayweather for making hundreds of millions of dollars for a fight? Goodness, no. If John Paulson makes billions of dollars, a hedge fund manager, if he makes billions of dollars, does that affect me? Absolutely not. If he loses billions, does that affect the average worker anywhere in America? Absolutely not. You're blaming the rich people for being successful. When you think about what happened after the financial crisis, you put so much regulation on banks that about $2 trillion of credit came out of the markets. That affects the average person out there. Whether these people on Wall Street make money or not, you can hate them all you want. I don't think that really bothers them, but it's also completely taking away from the point, which is what Bernie Sanders is trying to do, that government intervention has hurt us.
Okay.
In its simplest form, it's a lie that Bernie Sanders is trying to put on the public at this point in time. It is not true.
Okay, that's got to be the last word. Thanks, guys.